The following program is being brought to you on the Voice America Variety Channel. For more information about our network and to check our additional show hosts and topics of interest, please visit voiceamericavariety.com. The Voice America Talk Radio Network is the worldwide leader in live Internet talk radio. Visit voiceamerica.com. The views and ideas expressed on the following program are strictly those of the host or guests and do not necessarily reflect the views and ideas held by the Voice America Talk Radio Network, its staff, and management.
Welcome to Strategies for Financial Survival with Michael Figueroa. When financial adversity hits, and it very well may hit you, it's those that educate themselves and use their skills that will survive, no matter what field you're in. Now, here's your host, Michael Figueroa.
Good morning, everybody. Today, I'm going to be talking about establishing a business plan and how that relates to your success in being able to start your own business. We're going to cover a bunch of points that deal with how to structure this plan and areas that need to be covered in order to make this business that you're looking at doing successful. Today I am going to be interviewing a friend of mine who is a successful business owner who started as a young 20-year-old back when, and we will have a little conversation about that. His name is Alan. And so let me start out by talking about the importance of a business plan. So remember that one of the main areas that we talked about the last time was how do you transfer or convert yourself from an employee to an independent business owner. Most of the people I've dealt with, they're used to and like the idea of having a safe check, a paycheck coming in regularly, and going off on their own is a scary thought. Sometimes what happens, and this is now happening maybe more frequently, is the possibility that you may get laid off. If you're laid off, then you're sitting there looking at, well, what do I do? And you're being forced to make a decision. Do I do nothing? Do I collect unemployment? Do I put resumes out? Or maybe this is the time to look at how do I start my own business with the skills that I have. So this is the area that we want to talk about today. And so let me give you a little background on myself regarding that, and then I'd like to interview Alan for him to be able to express how he started out, because it is the perfect situation to be able to discuss and determine how did you trigger yourself to go out and actually start your business. For me, I started mine based on reading a couple of books. One was How to Make a Fortune in Real Estate in Your Spare Time, and I believe I may have talked about that a little bit. With that came the idea of, well, if you don't know how to do it, then you become an expert by doing it. And so I just went head in first, not knowing what to expect or what to do. And I learned through a series of failures how to succeed by learning from those failures. And what we'll be discussing is what triggers those areas that allow you to do that. So I'm going to give you a little bit of background on a business plan. What a business plan does, and when I interview people to talk about how you're going to start your business, is there are certain fundamental items that you need to cover in order to make this successful. So what is your skill? Evaluate what your skill is. What can you do? And what type of demand is out there with the public for your skill? If you determine what that consumer desire is, and you have a skill that can be utilized with the public, how do you implement that? How do you get it out there and market it so that you can now start your business and generate a living? What is it that takes the necessity for having faith to jump into this? And really, and a lot of times, it's based on blind faith. So in your business plan, there are areas that are a good outline for you to follow. One would be, what's my budget? What do I need in order to have in reserves, in capital? What do I have to buy? Do I have to buy equipment? Do I have to buy vehicles? Do I need to have funding for computers, for subcontractors that would be our marketing parties? Let's say somebody that knows how to put a website together and make that your marketing side. Doing a executive summary of what you intend to do and how you're going to do it is very critical. So as you start going through, who's my competition? How am I going to be able to establish this? Where's my marketing at? What is the budget area? These are the items that are going to help you understand how to structure and put this plan together. So at this point, I'm going to bring on Alan, and I'm going to ask him a couple of questions and see, you get to see how he has thought through and established his company. Alan, let's go to this. Tell him a little bit about what you have now, what you do now, and then let's go backwards to how that happened and how you got to where you are now.
Well, good morning, Michael. Well, right now I'm almost a venture capitalist, where I'm searching the United States to make investments, which sounds pretty remarkable to me considering where I came from. And I got to this point through a long patient road, building from scratch and building up slowly but strong. To go backwards is kind of something I've never done before, but I'll give it an attempt.
So go through it this way. So as we spoke before, explain how you were working for someone else as a 20-year-old, and as you were going through that job, how you decided to transition to do your own business.
Well, I as you know, Mike, I grew up in Tucson, Arizona, where I still reside. And when I graduated high school, I had to make a decision to get an education or learn a trade. And unfortunately, my background, we had family difficulties, and I wasn't able to work and go to school at the same time, but I followed my heart, and my true desire and where I was really comfortable with was learning a trade. I just really enjoyed the construction industry. And I just so happened, it was very serendipitous that I got into the concrete business. And within 1 year, I believe I was 21 years old. And within 1 year, I was a foreman, and I knew how to lead a crew laying out houses, apartment complexes, shopping centers, setting and pouring the foundations, and doing all this magnificent stuff. And I really felt comfortable as the foreman as a child, but as I got a little bit older, I just felt like I wasn't in my right place. I didn't have the feel. I felt like I was the type of person that definitely needed to have my own company. So pretty much by the time I was 25, I got my own license, subcontractor's license, and I started a concrete company in Tucson.
And explain how much money that you figured you had to have in order to start this. What was your budget and what was your plan?
Well, Mike, it was back then, the budget was very small and pretty much working from paycheck to paycheck. I did start originally. First thing I did before I even bought a vehicle was I bought a house, a little house. So I had that underneath me, was growing a little bit of equity, not much, but it gave me the opportunity to have an office inside my home, which really was a necessity at the time and worked quite well. Because once you do start a business, you're pretty much going to eat, breathe, and sleep that business to make it successful. It takes a lot of effort. So anyway, I'm sorry, were you going to say something, Mike?
I was going to go back a little bit here on the motivation that started you to say, I want to go out and do this. What triggered that motivation? What made you say, this is the time and place to do this now?
Well, it's funny that you asked that as well. It's something I never really wanted to admit to people, but it was hard work. Doing the concrete was very hard work, and I realized, boy, I either need to become a boss or go back to school because it's such hard work. And at the age of 25, I decided to get on my own. But more than that, seriously, it was just me as a person, more where I fit in. I was more comfortable in life as being a leader, a business owner. So I just went and started my business without much hesitation.
Now, going to the situation of, well, who are going to be my customers and how am I going to get contracts to work on? How did you figure on doing that, and what happened?
Well, what happened is, being as young as I am, you learn a lot through experience. And basically, living in Tucson, we had a very robust economy, and there was considerable growth in Arizona, Phoenix mainly, but also plenty in Tucson. So I had that luxury to where when I learned to trade and I was good at the trade, staying busy, the word of mouth, people find out about you. And if you can run a nice, good business, do a good quality job at a fair price, you can stay pretty busy. A lot of people, because I did spend 4 years as an apprentice in the industry before I started my own company, a lot of people were already aware of who I was and my capabilities.
Yeah, see, so I could see now the contracts are coming in. So I remember dealing with a number of people that as things started to come through, and I had mentioned to you this other contractor that I was subsidizing when I had my mortgage company, all of a sudden there is this desire, and I'd like to have you explain your philosophy as you start making some money. There's one philosophy that goes out and spends a lot of money on new equipment and fancy offices, and the other side that deals with more reserves, knowing that there may be layoffs and problems. How did you evaluate which direction to take? And you probably can give an example of some of the people that you've met that overextended themselves, and then when times got tough, they lost everything.
Yes, I was always, just by chance, I took the right path, and my path was to not necessarily, and I did have the luxury because I had my house. I could keep my house, my office in my house. I wanted to keep my costs down, and I wanted the company to actually, the money that came in from the company, actually build the company, opposed to going out and having a small business loan and borrowing money to grow the business. That would just create extra overhead trying to pay back that loan, and also negative interest going out the door. So what I did is, as I started, like I said previously, with the office in my house. I got one truck with a rack on it, a construction level, and some radios for communications. And I appointed my wife as my secretary. And pretty much I didn't even pay myself, just paid bills, and went out there and you got one job. And then once you did a job for someone, the ball started rolling. As the money started coming in, and we made sure we did a good job, we were efficient on our jobs, and we collected our money on the jobs. We didn't take on more work than the size of our company could handle.
That's, I think, a major point is taking on more than you can handle and then doing a flop job. I've seen that many times.
Yes, I've had friends that have done that, and I've explained to them that, I think you're on a highway to bankruptcy because you've got to let the business itself grow. The business has got to make it successful, not the person running it, if you know what I mean by saying that.
Mm-hmm.
And as the business, it will come natural as the money. If you keep your money in the business and you concentrate on making that business successful, as the business starts making the money, then you're in a situation you are forced to spend that money at that time on your trucks, on your equipment, on logos, on cards, and you eventually, and this is a tax write-off. It's a business expense, and that way you're enjoying all the income tax-free. And the business will grow and grow and grow with that philosophy.
Well, hey, guys, we're about to jump to break here, so we'll wrap it up and then take a quick break and come right back.
The Internet's #1 talk station. #1 talk station. VoiceAmerica.com. At Intuitive Strategies, LLC, we provide services to our clients that help them develop a strong education in business, and we also help them to develop a strategy that will allow them to turn their skills into a profit, protect their business and personal assets, and plan for a successful retirement. Our consulting and structuring services include business analysis, budget analysis, management analysis, ability to raise capital from investors, tax planning to minimize tax liability under code, as well as legal structure to protect business from frivolous lawsuits. Resolution Capital Strategies also provides document preparation services such as business structuring documents, documents that establish an entity, management agreements, retirement plans, estate planning, wills, and trusts. Let Resolution Capital Strategies help you with your business. Visit intuitivestartup.com or call us in Tucson at 520-425-8759. Visit intuitivestartup.com today. Stimulating talk
gets those synapses in the brain firing really fast.
All the time. The #1 Internet talk station where your opinion counts. VoiceAmerica.com. You are listening to Strategies for Financial Survival with your host, Michael Figueroa. If you have a question or comment about the program, please send us an email to support@intuitivestartup.com. That's support@intuitivestartup.com. Now, back to Strategies for Financial Survival.
Welcome back, everyone. So we've tried to cover a bit of how someone starts out as an employee and something triggers them to move forward to do their own business. Either you decide on your own that you had enough of a certain situation, or you're laid off and you're forced to figure it out yourself and what to do. So what I'd like to go into now a little bit is how, as your business is now has legs, let's say, and it's generating sufficient cash flow to allow you to have a surplus. and you're able to pay your bills, and your business has got good backlog of work coming in. You got good receivables. The one thing that I've noticed many times is that people become successful in what they do, and the success is really based on repetition. They do the same thing over and over and over because now they understand how it's done, and it becomes second nature. So the mistakes are minimized because you now know what not to do versus what to do. The next step that happens that you've got to be aware of and not let happen, and this I've been in, and I'm sure other people have many times, is you get bored with how well you're doing, and you start to venture into something else that you know nothing about, but it's exciting. So what I always see are people that want to get involved in the bars and restaurants and those type of services, and they know nothing about it, but they look at it as, I go down to the bar, it's always full, I have a lot of friends, I can socialize. Why don't I just buy this place? It must be making a fortune. Well, that's something that rarely happens profitably because it takes so many years of experience to make that type of business successful in the same manner that it took so many years to make your existing business successful. So here, what I'm going to talk about a little bit more is where we start to take our surplus money and where we go and what happens. For me, because I was in the buying and selling of foreclosure houses, of course, I went into doing that, and I understood how to do it. And the mortgage business that I was involved in, lending money on foreclosed houses and land development transactions, I understood that to a point, and so that was successful. It worked along, and that was my primary business. Well, I got to say, it didn't start out as the primary business, but it became the primary business of buying capital assets and then fixing them and selling them and flipping them. Now, Alan, when you started having surplus funds and things were going well, what did you do with your surplus funds, and why did you do what you did?
Well, Mike, that's an excellent question, and I think it's so key to building a successful business. What I would recommend and what I actually did was I went out and I bought a piece of property. I bought a vacant lot that I could actually put money into. I could build my own office. I could build my own yard with my storage sheds where I could store my tractors and my trucks, et cetera, et cetera. So as I had surplus money coming in, it was being put into property, my personal property that I already owned, to develop that. And because that becomes a business expense. So instead of giving money to the government, I'm building my wealth. And this worked very, very well for several years. And then you also put yourself in a situation to where you can actually start paying yourself rent from your business because you already own your property. And this works very well. And after, let's say, 12 years or so, you get to where you outgrow and you need to expand more. And I went down and I got a general contractor's license. And I started taking excess funds and, again, investing into real estate. And it was actually a secondary company. It was the C.A. Lineker Company. And so I have a concrete business, which I always considered my cash wheel. That was my heart, my soul, where my cash came from. And when we would get surplus money beyond what my business would need, we would purchase properties through the C.A. Lineker Company, and then we would develop a custom home or whatever the zoning was for that, the lot. And so I found myself, I ended up with, from one business, I grew into the second business. And that has worked very well for me over the years.
So, Alan, let me ask you this. So when you decided to go into the building business, how did you decide to do that? Did you put a team together? What triggered that event?
Michael, being in the construction industry and my love for the development and design and living it every day, I just really had such a strong desire to build my own custom homes, and watching other people, the mistakes that they were making on projects, and it was just something that I had a strong desire to do, and I also knew that it was a fabulous way to make a small fortune, if not a large fortune. And so I actually, Michael, built my first big custom home. I was 27 years old. And once you get started, and I saw that where I would go in and you could borrow a certain amount from the bank to build a beautiful custom home for yourself, and overfinance it to where you can end up with additional funds in your pocket. And then as evaluations of property values increased over the years, I realized that all I need to do on this business to make money was to live in a nice, beautiful custom home. And that's kind of how I did that. And I ended up building 2 or 3 homes over the years, and enjoyed the tax breaks that was offered. So you got yourself an architect. You already knew the subs. You probably knew the architect from the concrete jobs that you were doing. So you had those connections, and then designed out the house, moved into it, lived there for a couple of years, built other homes, and then did you sell house number 1 and move into house number 2? Because I know now, if you're in a home for 2 years, the first $500,000 for a married couple is tax-free, and that is a profit on the transaction. Is that what happened? You went from house to house that way? Well, the first part of your question was, I did have a lot of safety in my second business venture. As far as I knew architects, I could trade work, I had crews that could work on my own houses, and so I didn't feel like I was necessarily venturing out, starting a whole new business. It was really similar, and it's in the same industry as my subcontracting concrete business, as my general contracting development business, and those went hand in hand, and they worked out very well. And the second part of your question, Michael, is, you're correct. People did get in the game to where they wanted to take advantage of a $500,000 tax benefit, to where, and I have a family, a wife and 3 boys, and I chose not to jump them around as such. And so what I did was I lived in my first house for 12 years, and I decided to set goals. I had the luxury, when you have the luxury of having a cash wheel, which was my concrete business, this was an extreme advantage over other people. Therefore, I could build a house, move into a house, and set a goal to where, not where that house went up in value a couple $100,000, but I could say once the sales price was at $1 million, or there was $800,000 equity in a 10-year period or 5-year period, at that point I would sell. And I had that luxury again because of the concrete business being the cash flow. It was a lot easier on my family. So I didn't jump around as such, as I know that there's been other people out there in the industry that have built houses and lived in them for 2 years, which is the statute of per IRS. and then they would sell and do another venture.
Now, were you ever tempted, since you had surplus cash, into going into a business that you didn't really know much about, and you went into it and lost a bunch of money, like a bar, restaurant, or some such thing? Or did you maintain that discipline of saying, this is what I know, this is where I'm staying, I'm not going to speculate on things I don't know anything about?
Yeah. Again, this is a great question, because I did end up with extra cash, and I invested in the stock market, which I do not control, and I don't really know much about, and I would trust brokers on that. And that is something that I regret, not knowing and not controlling my money, but leaving it up to others. I realized through experience that I make my money through real estate and construction, which is what I know. And I also have realized that if I do get into any other business ventures, that I want to make sure I know what's going on and I educate myself thoroughly, and I'm in control. So I'm not a big fan of the stock market anymore. Consequently, yeah, go ahead.
That's a major issue that I learned over the years, was understanding what you should be investing in and not. What I learned, of course, just like you did, was it takes you years to be an expert in a given field, and you just got to have the discipline to say, this is what I know. It's taken me 20, 15, 10, whatever number of years, and to throw that all out and start all over again as if I was a 20-year-old and go through all of the experiences of losing money, which is really, when you lose the money, I equate that to getting your degree. So some people pay $100,000 to get their bachelor's. Some pay $300,000. Some pay $10,000. I know I think I paid about $5 million to get my doctorate. So,
oh my.
You know, the point though is that at least, as they say, as long as you're healthy enough to be able to learn from that and be able to go back out, that's the key. And so what you're saying and what I've seen with other people is stay away from what you don't understand and stick with what you really do, even though it might be boring. If you're going to gamble anything, determine, here's what I can throw away and it's not going to affect my lifestyle. So,
yes, I think it's very important that your listeners are aware that you be a master of one, opposed to a jack of all trades, master of none. I chose to pick a trade and specialize in it, and focus on one thing and do one thing to the best of my ability. And that is something that I pass on to my grandchildren just down the line. That is what I recommend highly.
Well, I think that is something that people will understand a great deal of. And when we have in our next series of sessions, we're going to talk about how to raise money, how to sell the concept, because we're going to be talking about real estate investing and how do you do that and how do you make it successful. So one of the things here that we're talking about is how to really get a skill and how to utilize that skill. Because if you're going to determine that you're going to go, let's say, in the house buying fix-up business, is where I started, of course, and then you were doing new construction, you want to make sure that you have a thorough knowledge of how the whole process works and what you need to understand and know before you jump into that. And that will ensure your success. For me, I was one that enjoyed the idea of apprenticing under someone, and one of my assistants here who is working with me, which is Coy, we're going through the lesson plan of how do you apprentice under someone and see how they do it, so that you don't have to run into the field first and get shot. You kind of go with a team and make sure that your team protects you, because they're teaching you the different parts of the field that you need to know in order to make sure that you're successful in your crossover. And so that's one thing that I found really important, is to put a team together. And this team, generally, what I did in college was put together people that were the attorney, the CPA, the marketing guy, and of course they didn't have internet back then. But we try to put that group together with the idea that these team members would help you learn what you had to learn in order to be successful, but at the same time, they would also guide you and do work for you. The lawyer may do contracts for you and carry your account. The CPA may do your books and carry your account. Other providers may do work for you and carry your account, because if they believe that you're going to be successful and that you were taking their advice, then it was just a matter of time before something would happen, and you would either have made enough money to pay them, or you would have sold something in your inventory, and they would be paid. And so that process would continue on, where every time you go into the next project, whether it's building the homes or buying and fixing up existing homes, based on what Alan and I have done, you would have your support team there, and they would help you along. The other thing that's really good is when you have your support team looking at you as being a growing business that's going to be a significant part of their portfolio and their team, that is something that is very important to try to establish with them, is that you're a long-term good client that's going to be there long after they're retired or gone. And that is one of the things that I've established with my attorneys and CPAs and other providers, is that long-term relationship. So these are backups behind what you're trying to do. It also helps to have, and Alan, I'll ask you this, when you were doing your construction work, did you ever have to have your architect or any of your subcontractors carry their accounts? And also, did those people say, hey, Alan, if you're going to do this, I definitely would like to be your man. I'd like to be the guy that does all of these for you long term. And by the way, I'd give you a really good price if I had exclusivity. Did that ever happen?
Hey guys, we're getting queued on the break here, so let's hold that thought. We'll go to the break real quick, and then Alan will answer that question.
At Intuitive Strategies, LLC, we provide services to our clients that help them develop a strong education in business, and we also help them to develop a strategy that will allow them to turn their skills into a profit, protect their business and personal assets, and plan for a successful retirement. Our consulting and structuring services include business analysis, budget analysis, management analysis, ability to raise capital from investors, tax planning to minimize tax liability under code, as well as legal structure to protect business from frivolous lawsuits. Resolution Capital Strategies also provides document preparation services such as business structuring documents, documents that establish an entity, management agreements, retirement plans, estate planning, wills, and trusts. Let Resolution Capital Strategies help you with your business. Visit intuitivestartup.com or call us in Tucson at 520-425-8759. Visit intuitivestartup.com today. Streaming live, the leader in Internet talk radio, VoiceAmerica.com. You are listening to Strategies for Financial Survival with your host, Michael Figueroa. If you have a question or comment about the program, please send us an email to support@intuitivestartup.com. That's support@intuitivestartup.com. Now, back to Strategies for Financial Survival.
Welcome back, everyone. And we were talking with Alan regarding putting a team together and how to keep that team. And I believe the last question I asked Alan was the fact that if you had architects and subcontractors and they saw what you were doing in your construction business and you were looking forward to building more homes, did you get these guys to offer to do all your work exclusively for you, say at a discounted price because they had that exclusivity and they knew your reputation, they felt comfortable with you. So from that, you get a better margin and better production of work because now you don't have to educate and train somebody else. You have somebody that's already there that has done this, a number of your projects, and they know exactly what to do and how to relate to getting the work done based on their working relationship with you. Could you expand a little bit on that, Alan? Give us your thoughts.
Yeah, Michael, that's a good point. And the way I feel is, as a business owner, you're still the man in charge. And instead of a firm or an architect coming to you and offer you the good prices and putting, so to speak, the carrot in front of your nose to get all your work, what I've done and what I suggest is that as the boss, you pick your architects that draw the designs that you want that go for your project. And you put together your whole team, and the thing that you look for first is quality. The prices will come. People will all give good prices, and the main thing is once you get people doing the good quality, then you'll get good prices, and therefore you'll end up with great relationships. And that starts, I noticed that started with my concrete company when I started with my employees. I made sure I had all the best foremen, superintendents, apprentices, even my laborers. And we carried that same practice through the office. And as I grew from one business to the next, I carried that philosophy with me. When we got into more general contracting, we found ourselves actually hiring other subcontractors. We always went with a quality contractor and a quality architect that could come out and get the job done and get the job done right, good quality job, and at a good price.
Now, one of the things that I've had the privilege of having, and I take it you have, and most of the people that I've noticed that were successful and are successful in their business is the fact that their employees stay with them long term. There's very, very little turnover, and I've always taken the position that I'd rather pay somebody more who I have trained and they know the process than to go through a situation where if there's a pay raise that is asked and you then hire new people, discharge the ones that you've trained and start all over because you don't want to pay the premium that you'd have to pay. And again, what I found was the value was in after you've trained them, you don't have to manage them as heavily as time went on, and the cost benefit was substantially greater by keeping good, loyal, competent employees with you than to effectuate a turnover. What was your philosophy and thoughts about that?
Oh, I agree 100%. When you grow your business, as we discussed previously, and you let the business grow the business, as income comes in by going small and growing big, as the business starts to bring in the profits, that puts you in a position so that you can take care of your good employees and all your employees. and it's definitely highly recommended. I just caution that people don't get caught in the trap, because it's a not easy thing to do to have to fire an employee. But you always continually want to make sure that if an employee is not performing and he represents you, it is your duty as the owner of the company to relieve him of his duties and replace him. If you do not do that, you will never find the employee that you're looking for. And once you do have your employees, your good employees, you definitely want to take care of them and keep save what you have built, which is the employees is every bit a part of your company.
Yeah, see, that I found that to be an absolute necessity, and I always look to profit share with them because they are the legs that make the business function, and it really helps you to be able to do more more policy management than actual hands-on on the day-to-day basis, because once they know what they're doing and they're handling things, it really frees you up tremendously. So I find that to be a very good philosophy. Probably,
and there's also no honor greater than when behind owners or clients come up to you and tell you what a great job your employees did and what hard workers they are. That's a really good feeling without you being right there every day micromanaging them.
I second that motion quite well, very well. Well, I know that based on some of the points that we brought up here, it gives a lot of people a good idea as to how to start. I think a lot of people look at give me an example of how somebody has done it and how they've come from zero to starting a fully functional and successful business. I've always found that the stories help me the best to understand how it works. And some of these points that we've shared with everyone, I think, is really critical to understand what you need to do, how you need to educate yourself in order to make a plan. And that's where we came back to the business plan. I hope everyone has been able to understand that the business plan that you have to put together is really a compilation of different factors. And what you're hearing today is how did somebody start? How did they evaluate what the business is going to be? How are they going to hire and structure their business and obtain customers? And I think you've seen both from Alan and myself that a lot of business comes to you based on your reputation. And it's by word of mouth. A great deal of our business comes by word of mouth. And that is the best type of advertising you can probably ever ask for is that type of arrangement. So these are points that you really want to understand. The other thing, of course, is what to do, how to raise money, and how to utilize that money, and how not to spend your reserves on things that you know nothing about, because all of a sudden you're doing well in your business and you get bored, and by being bored you invest in something that you don't understand, and then you start to lose. And when you lose, you could lose the golden egg, which is the core business in that case. And Alan, let me ask you this, almost on the last note. Did you ever speculate on houses and construction jobs or any type of deals that you borrowed money and lost money, or that you know someone really close that did that, and then they had their whole company pulled down because they overextended or guaranteed a big debt on some project that didn't succeed?
Michael, my belief is, and the way I've done it is, once you develop property and you have equities, you can actually have the power to use your own money, your own funds, through a HELOC, home equity line of credit. And primarily, I had that luxury to where once I built the custom homes, instead of flipping every 2 years, I could enjoy the equity in that house to do some other developments, which I did. I got into it, putting in small subdivisions and stuff like that on my own, and just really enjoyed it because I didn't have the pressure of having to pay back a bank. There's many, and a lot more stories out there other than mine, just the opposite, where companies have come in, entities have come in and bought companies for $1 million, where the timing's not right, and they've bought all the trucks, they've got all the employees. I would even go to say that they have a tendency to overstaff and overbuy because they have all these funds readily available to them. And it's just a matter of time, as time goes on, that you're going to be putting yourself into bankruptcy because you run into troubles because you find yourself so overextended from this.
Hey, we've got about a minute left here, so any last thoughts before we wrap up here?
Alan, I'll let you shoot for the last thoughts.
Okay. Michael, I want to thank you very much for having you on your show, and I do appreciate this opportunity, and I look forward to hopefully being back with you again in the future.
I think that people will appreciate what you've explained, and I'm sure that we will, as we go through other chapters that we're going to go for, that we'll have you back on to explain how you've dealt with those specific issues over time. So at this point, I think we've pretty much run our timeline. Hopefully we get a bunch of emails in, and I'll be able to respond back to those, and there may be situations where we may be able to allow for phone calls to come through. I think that's about it. Coy, are we about at the end point now?
We're good to go. Thanks, Alan, for coming on and sharing your experiences with us.
Thanks, Coy. Yeah, we didn't make it through all of them, but we got partway through.
Alrighty. Well, we'll see you all Thanksgiving. We're on break for holiday, but we're looking forward to being back on the radio.
Alrighty. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you again for tuning in to Strategies for Financial Survival. Please join host Michael Figueroa again next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific Time on the Voice America Variety Channel. Until the next show, survive and succeed.